3 hot industries in government contracting that you may not have considered for your business because of the way the industry sounds. Oh, I don't want to do that. Industry number 1, grounds maintenance. What comes to mind when we hear grounds maintenance? And I've talked a lot about it on the channel here too. Mowing and snow plowing. We think of the seasonality of the ground maintenance industry. But the government buys more than that. That's how it appears. And maybe we're like, oh, we don't want to get into that because of how it sounds and the assumptions we made around it, right? So more specifically, did you know the government buys integrated pest management? And they buy a lot of it, okay? I'm giving you 3 industries. Each one of these are really hot, okay? We don't have to explain how hot they are because I'm telling you they made the top 3 list. Okay, integrated pest management, IPM. The VA buys a lot of this, but a lot of other agencies buy it in their own different format, right? Their own different context. And it's having a plan as well as an execution for the pest treatment and the pest management on the government facilities. There's all these facilities, they need all this servicing, and that's what makes it a hot industry, right? Or not even a hot industry, but this is just a pillar of the ground maintenance industry. Okay, the ground maintenance industry, we're going to get more into it, but it's more of an overarching thing, right? Wildlife enhancement. Would you ever consider that as part of grounds maintenance? Well, you can. The government buys lots of things, but they buy them in ways that we don't assume. So wildlife enhancement. Park attendant services could be part of grounds maintenance. There's so many parks, there's so many areas where parks are included as part of areas where government buildings reside, and maintenance for facilities are existing. There's just, you can't miss it. If you actually literally go on sam.gov, there is always, it seems, park attendant services being bought, right? And it relates to grounds maintenance. Also, something very simple and straightforward, but you might not have considered it for grounds maintenance, tree and stump removal. Also, another one where we're like, well, why would we want to do that? Well, if we're actually wanting to understand what our customer is and provide them, the mission-serving services that they actually need, essentially the solutions to their problems, the things they need to buy, as opposed to coming to government contracting and telling the government, okay, what they have to buy from us or what we have to sell. They don't care, man. You got to learn your customer. So grounds maintenance, integrated pest management, other forms of pest management as well, wildlife enhancement, park attendant services, right, can even be a form of staffing, and tree and stump removal. These are just 4. There's many more of these, but these are just 4 that can be rolled up into grounds maintenance services for your business, something you may not have considered, but I bet you if you've been on sam.gov long enough, you've seen some of these facets, some of these branches, some of these spokes off of what I would call a hot industry. Number 2, facilities maintenance. Okay, overarching statements. I'm kind of making a shape here. Some of you may know what shape this is. I'll touch on it in a minute. Facilities maintenance. So how about fire extinguisher testing? Have you ever considered this? The government's buying a lot of it, and all of these make sense, right? Because it's part of the government's mission, whether it's related, in this case, it's related to facilities, but it's just making the operation tick, move forward with all of the supplies and services, in this case, services that the government needs to buy to keep the government functional, right? I mean, the easiest thing to think of is just like the Postal Service. What happens if the Postal Service shuts down? It's like one of the biggest communications branches, if you will, within the U.S. federal government. What happens if the communication flow stops within the country, okay? But every agency and sub-agency, they form a function. It's like Transformers, where all of the Autobots come together to form Optimus Prime, one big moving piece, but somebody's got to move the arm, somebody's got to move the leg, right? So we are aligning with these things. Facilities maintenance, so fire extinguisher testing, also alarm monitoring testing, okay? So fire alarm monitoring, just other forms of alarms as well. Lots of facilities are needing this, and we're seeing a lot of this on SAM. It's actually hood vent grease cleaning and duct cleaning. Buying it all of the time. Lastly, also, this is a form of it, but just overall preventative maintenance contracts. We are seeing a lot of these under what I would call facilities maintenance. So we've got grounds maintenance, very different. And then we also have facilities maintenance. Okay, and again, these are things that we're not necessarily thinking. And in last week's video, these are all where the overlap is. So last week's video was what should you sell to the government? If you haven't checked out the video, I will link the video down below. I highly, highly recommend it because too many people are throwing out industries, too many people are saying what you should do. And as I explained in the video, you're ignoring what actually makes sense for your business because your intuition, what is comfortable for you, especially if you're getting started, you recently got your cage code, like what you're able to move on, like your next step, identifying what your next step is, like not what the whole path is, but your very next step is going to come from you and kind of from taking an inventory that we go through a lot of skills and a lot of things in last week's video. But this week we're looking at this overlap, and I'm just giving you a few in great detail of 3 hot industries broken down into individual facets where there's overlap between what the government buys and the sub supplies. And yes, I spelled supplies. Somebody pointed that out, but I wasn't going to fix it now. I got to have integrity. So where the government buys and the sub supplies, there is an opportunity. And the 2 that I've named, ground maintenance, facilities maintenance, okay, absolutely, there's bid opportunities year-round for both of these. But is there also opportunities for subs? Are we going to have a hard time finding subs for pest management, for tree stump removal, for fire extinguisher testing, for hood or vent cleaning, some of the things I've named? Actually, there is a good number. There is a healthy number of existing commercial-based businesses that are already providing these services that could join our team as a teaming partner, where if you're using something like the legal middleman method, LMM, that would fit in nicely for a strategy for you, okay? So waste management, industry number 3. Waste management. Oh, I don't want to do that, yuck. We assume we're taking out the trash. Facilities maintenance, maybe we assume we're doing janitorial, right? And with the first one, grounds maintenance, like I said, maybe we're just assuming it's like mowing or weed whacking or snow plowing. The government is buying, as I keep saying, things differently than we may assume. So with waste management, it's not just taking out the trash. There is dumpster rental. So the government, they need dumpsters. How hard is it to provide dumpsters for 2 months, 3 months, 6 months? Get them there. Maybe you'll even have the opportunity to maintain them, empty them, switch them out, what have you. That'll make for an even more lucrative contract, but the government's buying a lot of it. Portable toilet and hand washing stations. See this all of the time. Is it a complicated scope? Not at all. Is there subcontractors out there, existing businesses in the commercial space that can provide hand washing stations and portable toilets? Of course there is. Of course there is. So there is quite a bit of overlap. We are in a healthy area. Then we also have things like tank pumping or tank inspection, right? Kind of go hand in hand, but they're 2 literally different contracts, and we see them quite often. And then there's also various forms of recycling, picking up the recycling, making sure that it's processed and executed in a way that is in accordance with not only federal regulations, but also state regulations. And you'll learn this the more you actually get into your own specific industries and these sub areas of the industries, that there is a number of just specific things that you will need to learn, that the only way you could learn them is as you get into them, right? And also you'll get up to speed through working with your teaming partner, subcontractor, because they're gonna ask questions when you're bidding on it, and then start of work meetings, all this sort of stuff. Things need to be laid out, your contract deliverables and your procedurals reports, things you need to do by certain dates, maybe even before the contract goes into effect and gets started. All those things will need to be laid out, and they vary from industry to industry. So grounds maintenance, facilities maintenance, and waste management. Maybe this allows you to think of these in a different way. So the reason I'm giving you these and that these are coming up is some of you know we've got the legal middleman method, right? Now, I wasn't tricking you, but I've been calling these industries, but I'm getting you more used to this concept of what an umbrella is. In the legal middleman method, we touch on it. I'm literally on page 79, the umbrella strategy, okay? The link down for the book is in the description if you haven't gotten it yet. I'm writing a second book, and I was afraid to say this because it's like, I don't want to jinx it, okay? But I'm like 10,000 words in, almost 10,000 words in, and it's going to be a book just on the umbrella strategy. So going deeper into umbrellas, I'll put another link down below for a short 2-minute video I did introducing you to the concept of the umbrella once again, but it's also, we introduce you to it in a legal middleman method, literally on page 79, the whole chapter. Okay, so, but I'm writing a book dedicated to positioning your business to win from the start. That's what I'm thinking about calling it, with it being the umbrella strategy. So in that book, I aim to give you literal umbrellas that you can consider. Okay, because just to say grounds maintenance or facilities or waste management, we don't know, we don't know what that means. And when we're coming into this space and we're making assumptions about what the government buys rather than working off of a proof of concept of knowing what the government buys, knowing where that overlap is so that we know we're going to be working in an area where there is healthy amount of opportunity for us instead of hitting the wall and burning out. That's all what I'm covering in the book. And I'm just touching on 3. I think I have close to a dozen, maybe more, I'm not sure, of umbrellas that I'm formulating and grouping and creating for you. And these are just a few of them to sort of get you thinking along the lines of that. Because, I often say, we've heard for a long time, folks say, I want to create a notary services business selling to the government, but there's just not enough opportunities, literal bids, that's what I mean when I say opportunities, to sell, to bid on year-round, to play the numbers game with year-round, to do that with notary services. There's just, at least in the federal space, at least on sam.gov, there's not enough of them. So what we're focusing on, so that you don't go and rush and get your cage code and say, oh my God, Derek, I'm not finding the opportunities, or I'm not finding them in the way that I assumed that I was going to be able to. It's like, no, instead we're doing proof of concept testing first, right? We talk about it in last week's video. And then we were building our offer, okay, what we have to offer. Too many people don't actually know what an offer is, right? An offer is designed, it's worked backwards from what solutions that your customer needs, okay, tied to problems that they have. So we don't get to come into the space and tell the government what they're going to buy. We don't get to come into the space and say, hey, I'm just assuming the government's buying this. So of course, as the world's biggest customer, I'm not going to have any problem finding bids for this. That is the single biggest way to screw yourself, like in this space, absolutely. So instead, we study what's in the marketplace, okay, in our channel, in our world, it's sam.gov. We study what's there. We study how the government's buying it, which is what I've given you today. It's not just that they're buying ground maintenance or facilities maintenance or waste management, but they're buying it in ways that we may not have considered. Integrated, pest management, IPM, rewind the video, dumpster rental, portable toilets, tank inspection, recycling, right? Maybe you know some of these, but I'm willing to bet you didn't know every single one of these. If you did, kudos to you, but I doubt it. And so this is just, once again, an idea of how to group services together to formulate an offering, which is your strategy for moving forward if you're new to government contracting. And I'm giving you 3 hot industries to start playing with. So go on sam.gov, start trying to find these things, work backwards, find the NAICS codes, find the keywords that are matched for these, start running your searches, and start seeing if you can say, okay, I'm seeing some overlap here. I'm seeing some of this stuff come up that Derek is talking about. It makes sense that this is the way that the government's buying it versus if I had made assumptions and then going to SAM, then I might not find it. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. And I'll link up those few things that I talked about, including our book. If you want to learn more about the umbrella strategy, we got it at page 79, Legal Middleman book, highly recommend it. But then also I'll give you a video that we have here on YouTube for the umbrella strategy to introduce you to that. I thought there was one other video. We'll see if I think of it. But yeah, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.